So thanks everybody for coming out this afternoon. As Amanda mentioned, I am part of SoMAS. I am out at Southampton. I'm on the eastern end of Long Island, and I wear many hats out here. My main hat is the building you see below you, or in the, we're not actually above, but the photo I'm showing you here is an aerial view of our marine station out in Southampton. It's a brand new facility. This is its 7th year. It houses a marine lab inside. It's a computerized state-of-the-art lab where we can do we study everything in there from harmful algal blooms, oyster cultivation, scallop cultivation, ocean acidification. We've got some researchers that are putting EKGs on scallops to listen to their heartbeat. There's some really wild stuff that goes on in this lab, and that's my main hat. That's the hat that has most responsibility. Another hat that I like to wear is the station's naturalist. So a naturalist is someone that knows quite a bit about the natural world around you. I'm not myself a researcher. Again, I work with a lot of researchers. I get to see the work that they're doing, but my work is just trying to educate people about some of the stuff that's around here. So today's one of those things we do is we get out on our research vessels and we trawl. We put out nets where we can catch organisms and let children and adults see these firsthand. And then my knowledge of the research, I can then put out to these people that are on the boat. Trying again to get the word out there what we're doing here. And you know, when you get somebody excited about the environment, they're going to care a lot more about it. So that's part of my role, and that's one of my favorite things about it. So today's lecture is Wild Long Island. You know, the plethora of wildlife that inhabits our air, land, and sea. Now, I'm limited to 20 minutes, so I could speak for hours about this. So I'm pretty much going to go through and showcase some of my favorite animals that live here on Long Island. These are all pictures that I've taken myself. So again, hope you enjoy it. But when people think of Long Island, especially if you're not from the area, what we usually think of right away is this. We think of New York City. We kind of get lumped in with the city. We're not thought of as country. It's usually like, oh, you must go to the city all the time. You know, especially out here in Southampton, we're a good 2 hours without any significant traffic. When people think of Long Island, you know, again, they think city. They think the wildlife consists of rats, and rats with wings, pigeons. You know, they get these. This is the idea of what wildlife is. And that's far from what else is here on Long Island and in New York City for a fact. There's a lot of really cool things that live in the city as well. So some of these birds that we're going to talk, or some of the animals we're going to start with is the most majestic, complete opposite of a pigeon. We're going to go in the air, the American bald eagle. So this is, again, not your pigeon, and these are very common on Long Island. They were almost extinct due to DDT, which is a pesticide used to kill mosquitoes. But since there was the use of it was stopped in the 70s, we've seen a huge resurgence of bald eagles. We often see them right here from the marine station. There's been many a times I've seen them right from my office window flying by. It's awesome to see. And again, this is a bird that people don't think would be on Long Island. Could you see these? These are very common. They've even started nesting around here. This was a nest that's in East Hampton last spring. After work, I'd take a 20-minute ride and I can go and check out these chicks. I watched them fledge their wing and fly. I watched the parents bring back all sorts of different fish. But again, it was 20 minutes from the Southampton campus. Another master of the sky and probably one of the fastest animals on the planet, the peregrine falcon. This is another one that was wiped out due to use of that DDT. But again, it's been banned since the 70s, and Stony Brook had a big part of that banning of the use of DDT. So since it's been gone, we've seen a real resurgence of these birds as well. This is a peregrine falcon at the Ponquag Bridge, which is about 10 minutes from the college out here at Southampton. Raptors are one of my favorite groups of birds, so we're going to talk a little bit more about some of the other raptors. We get a lot of winter visitors, and one of the winter visitors that's probably the coolest, the snowy owl. These migrate down from the high tundra, usually around November, and they're gone by April, and they hang out on our barrier islands. This is down on Dune Road, which is about a 15-minute drive from the campus. Again, they're just so majestic. One of my favorites, and being a fish guy and in love with raptors, it's got to be the osprey, which is known as a fish hawk. These birds crash right into the water to grab fish. When they grab it with their sharp talons, they fly right out. With this one is an alewife, which is a type of river herring that we get around here. They fly them up to their nest. They fly them up to a pole. We're fortunate enough that we have a nest right outside my office window, and the chicks hatched just under 5 weeks ago. And this is when they first hatch. If you could see them right down here, these little tiny things. Now, what I want to try and do now is I want to show you the live feed. If I can figure this out, hold with me. We're going to share, and we're going to go to here. They were just eating, so I'm hoping they're still eating. Oh, they're sleeping. They're taking a nap. But these are the 2 chicks that are right outside my office window. And again, on Thursday, they'll be 5 weeks old. You can see leftover of dinner right here, which was an Atlantic menhaden, which is a type of herring. So we're going to go back to sharing my PowerPoint. So again, osprey, very common around here. And even though these hawks have sharp talons, powerful beaks, a lot of other birds don't like them because they're threatened by them, so they'll chase after them. So the other day before work, and this is something I do almost every morning, I go for a beach drive or a beach walk, and I heard a couple oyster catchers chasing an osprey. I could hear them scream, and I could hear the osprey, and they were zipping around chasing because they didn't want it near their nest site. They're a really cool wading bird. They got this long orange beak. They probe in the sand for worms and shrimp and other invertebrates. A lot of these birds, you got to be careful though. You got to look carefully. Like this one, the American bittern. You could walk right by this bird because they sit really still. They'll even sway with the grass as the wind blows. Awesome bird around here. This was another really cool. We'll get these on our docks at the marine station at Southampton. This is a black crowned night heron. And this year I had a special surprise. I was able to find a yellow crowned night heron. These are not very common on Long Island. We're kind of at the northern extent of their range, but this was on my morning drive. I was able to spot this bird, and again, it's really cool bird. Often in the morning when I get to the marine station and I walk the docks, I usually scare up a great blue heron. These birds are huge. They'll have an 80-inch wingspan. It looks like a pterodactyl flying through the sky. They even make this really loud pterodactyl-like sound that's really just awesome to see. Now, these were some of the raptors and some wading birds. We also have a lot of ducks. And typically people are used to these kind of ducks, the mallard. This is the duck you'll see at your local ponds. Very common. But what's awesome about Long Island is we have a change of the seasons. And in the summertime, we have ducks like the mallard, which again, most people are familiar with. But in the wintertime, we get another whole group of waterfowl, other ducks that show up that are only here in the winter. One of them is the largest duck in North America, the common eider. This is a drake, which is a male. These little tiny ones are called buffleheads. I took this picture outside the pond here by my office. Canvasbacks. This is a hooded merganser. And they're this time of year, especially in the winter, they're looking for hens to mate with, to fly back to the tundra. And they do this fancy dance. They bounce their head up and down, and they try to attract mate. Now, we spent a lot of time near and around the water. And again, I kind of tied to the water, but there's a lot of cool stuff once you go inland as well. So we get the turkey. The wild turkey, these birds also were hunted to almost to extinction. But due to conservation efforts, they've made a huge comeback. We have a giant flock of them across the street from the marine station here that walk up and down the fields at the Southampton campus. Early morning, they're gobbling and gobbling. This is a big old tom, which is a male. Also across the street, this was a great horned owl. We got lucky. We had a nest on the campus, and we got to watch them raise their chicks, and it was quite awesome. But these birds are huge. They'll feed on the ducks that I was talking about earlier. They can fly through the air silent, big old talons. They'll grab a duck and fly right off into the woods to feed upon it. So again, really cool. We even get small birds, hummingbirds. This is a female ruby-throated hummingbird. To give you a scale of size, there's a wasp. So you can kind of get an idea how big these birds are. They're tiny, but again, very cool to see around here. Cardinals, if you're into bird watching, again, cardinals, gorgeous bright red colors. Woodpeckers, this is the red-bellied woodpecker. But that's enough about birds. So let's go to the land. Let's see what kind of cool things live on the land around here. And the eastern box turtle. Now these are cool. They're small, they're slow moving. During the months of June and early July, on my way to work, I usually find at least one. I have to help them across the highway. One day I found 5 of them in one morning, and I only live 17 miles from the college. So a short trip, and I was able to rescue 5 of these turtles as they crossed the road. Even though I'm there to help them, they usually hide in their shell. They close their shell. They tuck the way in to escape, but they usually appreciate the help across the highway. We have a lot of different types of snakes. This is a juvenile northern water snake. They're not going to hurt you. They might bite. They have a little bit of a bad temper, but they're not venomous, so you don't have to worry about it. They'll eat a lot of fish and frogs. We get garter snakes, black racers, ribbon snakes. There's a whole bunch of different snake species. As well, we get frogs. This is a pickerel frog. We get big old bullfrogs. And we'll get a little bit larger on the land. We got white-tailed deer. Now these again are very common on Long Island. This is a small buck that thought it was hiding well from me in the bushes, but I've got a good eye for spotting them. Sometimes you get some really, really big bucks. Other mammals, red fox. These are very common around our farm fields, the barrier beaches. If you're lucky, and every once in a while I get lucky in a season, I can find a den that has kits, baby fox. And talk about cute. Look at them just sitting there. These were 5 kits that were rolling around and wrestling in the sand and learning how to hunt and fight, because they're going to need that for survival as they get older. Now, again, I'm a marine science person, so I got to jump into the sea, and we'll hop right into the sea with this, a sleeping seal. So, you know, again, we get visitors here in the winter that are different than the summertime. So seals, they generally show up usually around October 15th, and by the end of March, they're gone. And they show up in some fairly large numbers. The sandbar, that's about 15-minute boat ride from here, and we do have a class in the spring, a marine mammal class, where we go out and observe these seals. We've had as many as 180 harbor seals hauled out on the sandbar, resting and taking a nap like this one. They're only here in the winter, though, so unless you brave the elements, it's sometimes tough to see them. Now, as cute as that looks, and you kind of want to go up and kind of pet them on the chin, I'd advise against that because they have some powerful teeth. This is a gray seal. So we get several species of seal on Long Island. The harbor are the most common. The gray seals would be the next most common. This is a pup. This one probably only weighed about 20 pounds. They can get upwards of 800, so they can get huge, and those teeth are sharp. So let's now go underwater. We'll jump in the water. We'll put our head under the water. What are we going to see? Everybody's favorite, the jellyfish. And I'm sure somebody in the room is now saying, yeah, those aren't my favorite. I don't like jellyfish. I hate swimming when I get stung. This is the lion's mane jellyfish. And typically, yeah, that red color, you'd want to stay away. They're going to sting you. These get very large, fully grown. You get a bell, which is their body can be 8 feet in diameter, and it can be upwards of 100 feet long. Even if that massive size, they're still considered plankton because they're at the mercy of the current. They might go up and down in the water column, but generally they're just going where the currents shall take them. Now, as much as we generally, I mean, I love jellyfish, but most people don't, but there are animals that depend on jellyfish, such as the leatherback sea turtle. Now, in the summertime, we're fortunate. There's 7 species of sea turtles in the world. We have 4 of them in our waters. This was a leatherback sea turtle that we saw on one of our ocean trips. I believe it was our ichthyology class where we were going out into the ocean. And right away, we saw this sea turtle. They can be upwards of 1,000 pounds. They can be fairly large, but they only eat jellyfish. One of the problems we have with leatherback sea turtles is they often ingest plastics, balloons especially. If you imagine trying to eat a jellyfish, they're super slimy, so you would imagine it would just kind of fall out of your mouth. Their throat has got these like hairs almost that go backwards, so as they swallow jellyfish, it goes down easier. When they come across a balloon or a plastic bag, they mistake it for a jellyfish, they'll accidentally eat it. But by the time they realize it's a piece of plastic, they can't spit it back up again. So they're forced to swallow it. That often will cause them to have blockages and cause them to die, starve to death. They often get hit by boats. But again, it's awesome to see. They get large, again, 1,000 pounds. They can get really big. Another critter that loves jellyfish and gets enormous as well is everybody's favorite, the ocean sunfish, better known as the mola mola. Now this fish, this particular fish, from here to about here is about 8 feet long. They call them sunfish because they like to lay down on their side and sun themselves. Often they get beaches closed because when they're on the surface, that dorsal fin comes up and right away everybody starts humming the Jaws theme. But it's just this big sunfish that eats jellyfish. Again, they get huge. And even though it doesn't look like it has much of a tail, I've seen them on numerous occasions jump 3 feet out of the water. They'll breach. It's almost like a kitchen table coming out of the water and splashing back down. We see them quite often on our ocean trips as well. If you're into fishing, which I definitely am, one of the favorite fish that people fish for around here is the summer flounder, better known as a fluke. It's a flat fish. They lie down on the bottom. They're actually lying on their side. They're not truly flat. They got a large mouth full of sharp teeth that they'll eat just about anything they can catch. Fish, shrimp, squid, you name it. If they can get their mouth around it, they're going to eat it. If you go swimming in some of the eelgrass, and this picture, I was in 3 feet of water with a snorkel. I don't even have to go far. We have our lion seahorse, which is our local species of seahorse. They're very common in our seagrass beds. And one of the researchers out here, the Peterson lab, Brad Peterson, does a lot of work with seagrass ecology. And I was assisting some students when we came across this seahorse. And of course, I always have a camera, so I was able to take a picture of it. We do a lot of work out here with bay scallops. This is an important fishery out on the east end of Long Island. It brings in a lot of money, not only for fishermen, but restaurants and so forth. This population goes up and down, and we do a lot of work with restoration programs. Most people have never seen a live scallop, but these bright blue dots are their eyes. They have 18 pairs of the brightest blue eyes you've ever seen. Some other odd things that we find around here that most people might not realize. Octopus. This was an octopus that we collected with a high school group it was a couple years ago, but we had a group of high school students on the boat doing one of our bay explorations, and we caught this octopus, which at the time was only about 1/4 of an inch. When it died, it was about 20 pounds, but they are fairly common around here. This time of year, we get a lot of tropical fish. These are butterfly fish that drift up here on the Gulf Stream. That's not Photoshop. That's about a dozen fish in the frame of the picture. This particular dive, I had to see at least 200 butterfly fish. We get blue angelfish, short big eyes, look downs. As far as other cool things in the water, we get a lot of sharks. One of my hats outside of Stony Brook, I'm involved with shark research. And me and my colleagues have tagged like this mako, blue sharks, brown sharks, duskies, sand tigers, hammerheads. And to date, in the last 5 years, we've actually tagged 32 young of the year white sharks, the great white shark, right here on Long Island. And honestly, if I told you how far from the beach, I could probably throw a rock and hit the boat when we're fishing. So they're also very close. We get marine mammals for those that like dolphins. In fact, this morning's trip along the beach, I stopped, I got out, and I saw a pod of probably about 50 of these bottlenose dolphins that were harassing a school of bait fish. So these are very common around here. You can see them, as I said, with your feet in the sand. And we also get whales. This is a humpback whale that I took a picture of 2 summers ago. In the background is Southampton. That's Cooper's Beach in the background. So again, you can see these from the shore. They're feeding on bunker as well. These are them jumping out of the water. There's 2 of them. You can see one's mouth in the back here. Again, look how close to the beach. So you don't have to go far to see that. And then I'm going to end it with a little bit of a fancy show. This is 4 or 5 humpback whales that are bubble feeding. So what they're doing now is they're blowing bubbles. The bubbles trap in the bait fish. They swim up with their mouths wide open, scooping up the bait fish, and then going back to the bottom. So now that you've seen it, I'm going to play it one more time just to give you a better idea of what to look for. That white thing right there are its fins. Here come the bubbles. These are bluefin tuna and shearwaters also, by the way. And we have several researchers that are studying these whales. And in fact, one of our captains, Captain Scott, will be taking a couple researchers out about 30 miles offshore tomorrow in hopes of finding some of these humpback whales so they can catalog them and work with them. So again, we work from everything from harmful algal blooms to giant marine mammals. And with that, I always like to end with a nice sunset of the bay right here in Shinnecock. Now, if you enjoyed any of these pictures and you want to learn more about some of the wildlife that's out here, well, one, you should definitely look into SoMAS. That's an important part of that because we work with these on a daily basis. It's kind of fun to say I get paid to go whale watching. It's not a bad gig at all. But you can also follow my own social media. It's Fish Guy Photos. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Twitter, Instagram. You can give me a follow there. I'm always posting stuff that's happening here on the island. So if you're into marine science, it's a good way to see what else is out here. More importantly, though, if you want to come out to Southampton, we have the Semester by the Sea program. So your classes and labs will be on our vessels in our building out here at Southampton. And there is the link. If you go to Stony Brook website, you can just type in Semester by the Sea and it'll pop up and it'll give you a whole bunch of information. And if you come out here at that point, you would be working with me because this is where I'm based out at Southampton. So does anyone have any questions? On this, on the animals, on the marine science program out at Southampton or SoMAS in general, you know, like I said, it's a really fun experience, you know, being out here on the water. You get your hands wet, you get your feet wet, you know, sometimes you get your whole body wet depending on what we're working with. Where can we see the chicks webcam? So that we've have an issue. We're still working on how to make that live. Right now it's got controls where if we put it up live, people would control the camera and move it and whatnot. So we're trying to figure out that. The best way to keep up on the progress of the chicks is to follow SoMAS on Facebook or Instagram. I'm pretty good at trying to take every other day or so, I'll take some pictures and put them up there so people can watch how they grow. We are working on seeing how we could do that live next year as a live stream that people can link in there and watch it. But this was our first year for having those chicks, so we're super excited. I think I'm probably more excited than anybody. It's kind of like my kids out there. Yeah, so the videos that didn't play, what I'll do is, yeah, so I have them, actually most of them are on my YouTube channel. So that's an easy way to do that. I can send some links for those. I don't know why, it might've been from the Mac to the PC where I had a problem there. But that would be, like I said, the easiest way to see some of them, if you quickly look and you go right to my YouTube channel, which is Fish Guy Photos, and you would see that. Are there any questions at all? Oh. What are the educational requirements for your job? So my job is a little bit different. So my little bit of background about me, I went to school here at Southampton when it was still part of Long Island University. Long Island University no longer has this campus. It's now part of Stony Brook. So I have a BS in marine science. Once I graduated, I was the senior biologist at the Long Island Aquarium for 13 years. Prior to that, I was actually a stranding technician with the New York State Marine Mammal and Rescue Program for 4 years prior to the aquarium. So a lot of my background and experience kind of with hands-on stuff. And that's something I think that's super important for students now, no matter what your field, whether it's marine science or another major. Getting experience, hands-on experience is extremely important. You can get a 4.0, you can have a master's and a PhD, but if you don't have actual experience, it gets really difficult to get those jobs. So again, for me, I'm in charge of this $10 million research lab. I have a bachelor in science, but I have many years of experience of hands-on doing stuff. So with that, like a lot of these things I talked about, you know, the scallops, we work with groups like Cornell Cooperative Extension. There's the aquarium, which is about 15, 20 minutes from here. There's the New York Marine Rescue Center. These are all places that offer our students opportunities to volunteer and get that hands-on experience. Also in-house, for example, for out here, I mentioned Brad Peterson's lab. You know, we have a lot of undergraduates that volunteer in his lab. Some of them actually will get paid in his lab as techs. Some of them that go on to be grad students in his lab because of the experiences they've gained. So that's something you always want to keep in mind, is getting all this other experience, whether it's from inside at Stony Brook or outside. And like I said, there's a ton of opportunities around the area to get those type of experience, but it's all about experience. Will determine your job and where you're going to go. How did you end up doing what you do now? So I was at the aquarium for a very long time. I was there before it was anything. It was a pile of dirt. I was involved with all the construction. Most of those exhibits I plumbed and helped put together, collected many of those animals. After 13 years, things got a little, I don't want to say boring, but it was kind of the same old thing every time. So I started looking for some new opportunities. And I left the aquarium to pursue some of my writing. I'm also a writer. I write for several magazines. I write monthly columns. I've been published over 120 times now in different magazines. And through that, it started going, but writing is not, for at least freelance writing was enough to pay the bills. And then I had heard about this position and I jumped out. I applied. I tried my hardest. I have a captain's license. And again, a lot of my experience with aquariums and plumbing was suitable for this position. You know, I work hand in hand with a lot of our grad students, plumbing their experiments, putting them together, going in the field and collecting stuff. So as you saw, I posted a lot of cool pictures to now of things that maybe you didn't know were here. Well, that happens quite often. So then the students might come to me and say, hey, I need seahorses for my experiment. Where can we go? And I would help them out and find them. So a lot of my experience is what got me this position here as the manager of this research lab. So that was, you know, a big part of it. Where can I find an octopus? Only by boat, wading in the seashore. So I have found octopus by boat. I have found them scuba diving. And I've actually, out of all of the ones that I've collected, me personally, I've caught more wading in the water, picking up, I hate to say it, but picking up garbage. Old beer bottles or soda bottles, more times than not, I have found them hiding inside them. Well, you got to keep in mind with an octopus, the width of their eye socket is the size of a hole they can sneak through. So, you know, it takes nothing for an octopus to slip through the neck of a beer bottle or a soda bottle or some other bottle. Empty snail shells are also another place that you could find them. Is a driver's license required for semester by the sea? No, because you can stay in the dorms out here at Southampton, and then it's just a matter of walking across the street. Again, it's a short walk across a field that I've seen fox, seen owls, I've seen turkeys, I've seen deer. So it's kind of like a little wild tour as you come across the street. With that, we even have kayaks here. So often the students that are out here for semester by the sea will sign out a couple kayaks and they'll paddle out into the bay and see all sorts of other stuff as well. So you don't need that. If you're at main campus and you're just taking some classes out here, there is a shuttle that'll bring you back and forth. So yeah, so you don't necessarily need a license to participate. What are some of the research or intern opportunities at Southampton? So the few labs that are out here, I guess, that take up a majority of our lab. So Chris Gobler, so the Gobler lab does a lot of work with ocean acidification and harmful algal blooms. He probably has the largest group of researchers, grad students, postdocs, volunteers, lab techs, and they do a lot of different stuff. So that would be one lab if you had an interest in those areas. Brad Peterson, as I mentioned, does seagrass ecology. They're in the field a lot more, doing a lot of predator-prey relationships, looking at grass populations, printing out new grass. So again, it varies quite a bit what that lab does. Overall, several of the PIs out here, the researchers, work with the Shinnecock Bay Restoration Program, and that they'll put out oyster reefs, plant clams, do fish surveys, trawl surveys every 2 weeks, and there's opportunities with we call it SHRP, the Shinnecock Bay Restoration Program. So that's something that you could get opportunities at. There are some other researchers that do work out here as well. I know Bossum does stuff out here. He's got some students here this year. Joe Warren's lab, they don't do too much in here, but they do a lot of stuff on our vessels. He does a lot of acoustic work, so using sonar and radar and whatnot. So they do a lot of different things there. But one thing with all those labs is to keep in mind, if you're interested, reach out sooner than later. They generally have limited, and this goes for all these places, even outside of here, but they generally have limited opportunity. And there's always a lot of people that want to do those opportunities. So it's best to get yourself in the door early. You know, if you're a freshman, I always recommend go and meet one of these professors. See if you can make an appointment to meet with them, learn a little bit about them, find out on the website, look at their papers, you know, see what they're doing, see if it's something that interests you. And, you know, again, maybe those opportunities can turn into a grad student position later down the road. Or at the very least, it's getting you hands-on experience. Is there any research on corals or reef fish here or anything on aquaculture? So I know there are researchers at Stony Brook working on tropics. I don't know particularly who. Here, Brad Peterson's lab does do some work in Jamaica as well as Joe Warren. I know some of students of Joe Warren also go, Brad Peterson also go down to Panama. So there is some reef stuff here. Because I'm not involved as much, I don't know a lot of those details, but I would reach out to the Peterson lab for at least a start to see where they're at with that. As far as aquaculture, out here, no finfish aquaculture. It's all oysters, clams, scallops, and now kelp. We've been doing a lot of kelp farming, which has been super exciting because the kelp, we're even working with local businesses to use it for composting. So there's a local vineyard out here that they're now using our kelp as compost with their wines. So it's some really exciting stuff that we're doing as far as that aquaculture, but nothing that I know of at SoMAS for like finfish ornamental stuff. But I know the Southampton High School, which is not far from here, was offering an aquaculture class for us, excuse me, for our students, where they were raising clownfish and seahorses and corals and stuff as well. What is the average class size at the Southampton campus? So pretty much the largest class would be about 32 to maybe 34 if they're able to fit them in. We're limited by our vessels. So that's our biggest problem. So if it's a class that requires getting on a boat, if the maximum on the RV Baconic is 30 people. So if there's more than 30 people in that class, then there's 2 lab sessions. So it starts to get a little bit difficult to juggle everything. So most of the classes are under that 30 or right around that 30. So it's a small, intimate group out here. You get a lot more hands-on that way. Is there a certain number of credits required to participate in a semester by the sea? So I'll be perfectly honest with you, I don't know for sure. Kurt Bretsch is the director of the Semester by the Sea program. And if you go to the Semester by the Sea part of Stony Brook's website, he is the contact info from there. And he'll be able to give you a better idea of what courses, credits, and so on that you would need for that class. Paul Shepson said that Corrine, I'm going to mix up the name here. Klinenhaus is doing work on coral reefs in the Red Sea. So there are other researchers at SoMAS that are studying corals. So I personally, the best thing would be to go to the SoMAS webpage, and you could see what all the researchers are doing and their interests and papers, and that'll give you a better idea on who's doing what. What species was the octopus in the photo? So that's a tricky question because most people say Octopus vulgaris, which is the common octopus. They go from the Caribbean up to Cape Cod, or even a little bit further north. I'm questioning, I always skeptical. I would love to see like a DNA sample, but it's one of those things, I don't see enough of them at once to be able to compare that. But I do know for a fact, though, I've caught them in the middle of the winter where the water is in the 40s, and I could bring them to the lab and warm them up and they'll do fine in the 70s. So it might be vulgaris, but again, it's so hard to tell with some of those octopus, and I'm definitely not an octopus expert at that. So are there any other questions? If not now, please feel free to shoot me an email. I'm happy to answer questions. If you want to come out to the Southampton lab and see firsthand what's going on out here, I highly highly recommend that, but please reach out. I'd be happy to give you a tour, show you around, answer some questions that you might have. Like I said, it's a really special spot out here. And as you can see from some of the pictures, all those pictures are pretty much taken on my morning drive to work. I mean, I go not on the main highway, but you kind of get the idea. It's all within the vicinity of here. And even at main campus, there's so much cool stuff on main campus. I'm always amazed when I drive the campus, the animals and birds and stuff that I see. Are the white, someone just asked a question, are the white sharks that you tag native to Long Island? So Long Island it's been rumored, or suspected, I should say, to be a nursery ground for young of the year white sharks, going back as far as 1800. From 1800 to 2010, there's been over 600 documented white sharks in the New York Bight, which is from Cape May, New Jersey to Montauk Point. It's kind of that triangle, that flattened triangle. The work that we've been doing in the last 5 years has kind of solidified this. We've put out a lot of satellite tags, acoustic tags, and we're starting to see that the data that these sharks just, in the summertime at least, pretty much swim from Montauk to New York City back and forth, and then in the wintertime go south to like North Carolina. And then next summer they come back up north again. So, it is an important area for the development of the young of the year sharks. We don't know where they're born, though. We just know that they hang out here as juveniles. And again, the work that I do with that is with the South Fork Natural History Museum in Bridgehampton, which is about 20 minutes, half hour from here. I know a few of our students are actually employed there now as educators. So again, it's another one of those places that's in the area that offers opportunities for internships or potential jobs as well, depending on what you're looking to do. So if there are no more questions, like I said, if you do have one later, please shoot me an email. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have. But other than that, welcome to Stony Brook. And hopefully I don't see any faces right now, but hopefully we'll see some of your faces in the future out here at Southampton. So thank you, everybody. Thanks for having me. And I guess we'll talk soon.
Thank you.
You're welcome.